Rich man mocked a homeless biker. Minutes later, he was on his knees, begging. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the upscale Cherry Creek shopping district in Denver, Colorado. The autumn air carried a crisp chill, and the leaves on the ornamental trees lining the pristine sidewalks had turned brilliant shades of amber and crimson. Expensive cars lined the street, their polished surfaces reflecting the golden light. This was a world of wealth, where designer boutiques and five-star restaurants catered to those who never had to check their bank accounts. Marcus Whitmore stepped out of his silver Bentley Continental GT, the door closing with a satisfying thud that spoke of engineering excellence and a six-figure price tag. At 47 years old, Marcus embodied success in its most conventional form. His tailored charcoal suit, custom-made in Italy, fit his athletic frame perfectly. His steel-grey hair was styled with precision, and his Patek Philippe watch caught the sunlight as he adjusted his cufflinks. Everything about Marcus screamed wealth, power, and control. He had built Whitmore Capital Management from the ground up, turning a modest inheritance into a financial empire worth over $200 million. He managed portfolios for some of Denver's wealthiest families, and his name carried weight in boardrooms across the country. Marcus prided himself on his business acumen, his ability to read markets and people with equal precision. He had worked hard for everything he had, or so he told himself, conveniently forgetting the advantages his privileged upbringing had provided. As Marcus walked toward the Metropolitan, an exclusive steakhouse where he had a standing reservation every Thursday, he noticed the usual street performer playing guitar near the corner. The man was tolerable, he supposed. At least he could carry a tune. What irritated Marcus were the homeless people who occasionally wandered into this carefully manicured district, disrupting the aesthetic with their presence. Today, sitting on the curb near the restaurant's valet station was exactly such a disruption. The man was in his early 50s, his weathered face partially hidden by a thick, graying beard. He wore a worn leather jacket with frayed patches on the elbows, and his jeans had seen better days. Most notably, beside him sat an old motorcycle helmet and a backpack that looked like it had traveled thousands of miles. His hands, scarred and calloused, held a cardboard sign that read, "Homeless Veteran, anything helps. God bless." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. This was Cherry Creek, not some downtown alley. The presence of this man was inappropriate, possibly even illegal. It certainly affected property values and the shopping experience. As he approached, Marcus made a decision that would alter the trajectory of his entire evening and perhaps his life. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice dripping with condescension as he stopped in front of the homeless man. "This is a private area. You can't just sit here panhandling." The homeless man looked up slowly, his blue eyes surprisingly clear and alert beneath heavy brows. There was something in those eyes, a depth that Marcus chose not to acknowledge. The man didn't speak immediately, just studied Marcus with an unreadable expression. "I'm not bothering anyone," the man finally said, his voice rough but steady. "Just sitting here, sir. It's a public sidewalk." Marcus laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Public? Look around you. Do you see any other people like you here? This is Cherry Creek. There are shelters downtown where you belong. Go there." A small crowd was beginning to gather, though most people hurried past, avoiding eye contact. A young woman with shopping bags slowed her pace, her face showing discomfort at the confrontation. An elderly couple stopped near the restaurant entrance, watching. The homeless man remained seated, his dignity intact despite his circumstances. "I served this country for 12 years, sir. I have as much right to be on this sidewalk as anyone." "Oh, here we go," Marcus scoffed, his voice rising. "The veteran card. You know how many people claim to be veterans just to get sympathy, and even if you are, what happened? Couldn't handle civilian life? Made bad choices? That's not my problem, and it's not anyone else's problem here." The man's jaw clenched, but he kept his composure. "I don't want any trouble. I'm just what? Just bringing down the whole neighborhood?" Marcus interrupted, his face reddening with righteous indignation. "You think anyone wants to walk past someone like you to get to their dinner? You think this is the image Cherry Creek wants to project? You're hurting businesses, scaring away customers." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police. They'll remove you and probably cite you for aggressive panhandling or loitering. Then you'll have a record that'll make it even harder to find work. Not that you're probably looking anyway." "Marcus!" A sharp voice cut through the tension. Marcus turned to see Richard Chen, a fellow member of the Cherry Creek Country Club, standing near the restaurant entrance with his wife, Linda. Richard, a successful surgeon, wore an expression of disapproval. "What are you doing?" Richard asked, walking over. "This is unnecessary." "I'm handling a situation," Marcus replied coldly. "This man doesn't belong here." Linda Chen stepped forward, reaching into her purse. Before Marcus could say anything, she pulled out a $20 bill and handed it to the homeless man. "Thank you for your service," she said quietly. The homeless man looked at the bill, then at Linda, and nodded. "Thank you, Mom. God bless you." Marcus felt his face grow hot with anger. "You're enabling this. You're part of the problem. Give them money, and more will come. This area will turn into—" "Into what, Marcus?" Richard interrupted, his voice sharp. "A place where human beings exist, where people who've fallen on hard times might receive a moment of kindness." "Easy for you to say when you don't own property here," Marcus shot back. "I have investments in this district. This affects my bottom line." "Everything is about money with you," Richard said, shaking his head. "Come on, Linda. Let's eat somewhere else tonight." As the Chens walked away, Marcus turned back to the homeless man, his humiliation fueling his anger. "You see what you've done? You've caused a scene. You've disrupted good people's evening." The homeless man slowly stood up, revealing his full height. He was tall, with broad shoulders that his worn jacket couldn't quite hide. Despite his circumstances, there was a strength in his bearing, a military posture that years of hardship hadn't completely erased. "I'll move," he said quietly. "I don't want trouble." "That's right. You'll move," Marcus said, his voice venomous. "And take your pathetic motorcycle fantasy with you. What kind of biker can't even afford a bike? You're probably not even a real veteran. You're just a con artist who made bad life choices and expects society to bail you out." The man's eyes hardened, but he said nothing. He picked up his helmet, his backpack, and his sign. As he walked past Marcus, he paused for just a moment. "I hope you never find yourself where I am," he said softly. "I hope you never know what it's like to lose everything and have people look at you like you're less than human." Marcus scoffed. "I won't, because I make smart choices. I work hard. I take responsibility for my life. You should try it sometime." The homeless man walked away, his stride steady despite the limp that Marcus now noticed. As he disappeared around the corner, Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction. He had handled the situation decisively, protected the neighborhood, and stood up for property values. This was leadership. Marcus straightened his tie and walked into the Metropolitan, nodding at the host who greeted him by name. The restaurant was everything Marcus loved, elegant, expensive, and exclusive. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. The other diners were all people of means, their conversations hushed and refined. As Marcus sat at his usual corner table with a view of the street, he ordered his regular, a 16-ounce ribeye, rare, with a glass of Caymus Special Selection Cabernet Sauvignon. The wine alone cost $80 a glass, but Marcus never hesitated. He had earned this life. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant Jennifer confirming tomorrow's meeting with the board of directors. Marcus was presenting a new investment strategy, one that would solidify his reputation as one of the most aggressive and successful fund managers in Colorado. He was on the verge of something big, a deal that would push his net worth past the $250 million mark. Everything was going according to plan. Marcus, allowed himself a moment of contentment as he sipped his wine. The incident with the homeless man was already fading from his mind, just another minor annoyance dealt with and dismissed. He had no way of knowing that in less than 30 minutes his entire world would be turned upside down, and that same homeless man would hold his fate in his hands. Outside, the autumn evening deepened into dusk. The temperature was dropping, and the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Traffic moved steadily along the street, headlights creating rivers of light in the growing darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, the homeless man Marcus had humiliated was walking toward an appointment with destiny, though neither of them knew it yet. Marcus was halfway through his steak when his phone rang. He frowned at the interruption, ready to decline the call, but the name on the screen made his blood run cold. St. Joseph Hospital. His hand trembled slightly as he answered. "This is Marcus Whitmore." "Mr. Whitmore, this is Dr. Patricia Morrison from St. Joseph Hospital. I'm calling about your daughter, Emma." The world seemed to tilt. Marcus gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. "Emma? What happened? Is she okay?" "There's been a serious car accident on Interstate 70 near the mountains. Your daughter was driving back from Boulder with 3 friends. Mr. Whitmore, I need you to come to the hospital immediately. Emma is in critical condition." The phone slipped from Marcus's hand, clattering onto his plate. The other diners turned to look, but Marcus didn't notice. His 17-year-old daughter, his only child, his Emma with her bright smile and dreams of becoming a veterinarian, was in critical condition. He was on his feet, throwing down his credit card without waiting for the bill. "Emergency!" he managed to say to the startled server. "My daughter!" Marcus ran from the restaurant, his carefully controlled world shattering with each step. His hands shook as he tried to unlock his Bentley, dropping his keys twice before finally getting the door open. St. Joseph Hospital was 35 minutes away in good traffic, but this was Thursday evening, and rush hour was in full swing. He pulled out onto the street with squealing tires, his mind racing. Emma had said she was going to Boulder for a study group, planning to be back by 6. It was now 7:15. What had happened? Who was driving? Were the other kids okay? Marcus merged onto I-25, immediately hitting a wall of red taillights. Traffic was moving at a crawl. He laid on his horn, swerving between lanes, trying to find any opening. Other drivers honked back, their anger matching his desperation. "Move! Move!" Marcus shouted at the windshield, as if his voice could somehow part the sea of cars. He grabbed his phone, trying to call the hospital back for more information, but the call went to voicemail. He tried Emma's phone, knowing it was futile, and heard her cheerful voice on the voicemail message. "Hey, it's Emma. I'm probably riding my bike or studying. Leave a message and I'll call you back." A sob caught in Marcus's throat. Emma loved her bike, loved animals, loved life. She was kind where he was harsh, generous where he was calculating. She was the best part of him, the part that reminded him there was more to life than money and success. Traffic moved forward a few car lengths, then stopped again. Marcus checked his GPS. 42 minutes to the hospital at this rate. 42 minutes while his daughter fought for her life. He looked desperately at the shoulder of the highway. It was barely wide enough for a car, and it was illegal to drive on it, but desperation was overriding his usual respect for rules. Marcus made the decision and jerked his Bentley onto the shoulder, accelerating past the stopped traffic. Horns blared. Someone shouted. Marcus didn't care. He pushed the speedometer to 60 on the narrow shoulder, his luxury car's suspension struggling with the uneven pavement. He had made it maybe a quarter mile when he heard the sickening sound of his tire exploding. The Bentley lurched violently to the right. Marcus fought the steering wheel, managing to avoid rolling, but smashing into the concrete barrier that separated the highway from the residential area beyond. The airbags deployed with a deafening bang, and the car came to a grinding stop, steam hissing from the crumpled hood. Marcus sat stunned for a moment, his ears ringing. The airbag had bloodied his nose, and he could taste copper in his mouth. But he was alive, and he needed to get to Emma. He fumbled with his seatbelt, finally getting it unbuckled, and shoved his door open. The Bentley was destroyed, the entire front end crumpled like aluminum foil. Traffic was crawling past, some drivers slowing to look at the accident, but no one stopped. Marcus stood on the highway shoulder, his expensive suit now covered in airbag dust and blood from his nose, and felt true panic for the first time in his adult life. He was stranded, his car destroyed, his daughter dying, and no one was stopping to help. He pulled out his phone to call 911, but the screen was cracked from the impact, showing only a spiderweb of broken glass. He tried to unlock it, but the touchscreen was unresponsive. "No, no, no!" Marcus shouted, pressing the button repeatedly. Nothing. An ambulance screamed past on the highway, heading in the opposite direction, probably toward whatever accident was causing the traffic jam. Marcus tried to wave it down, but it was gone in seconds. He looked around desperately. There was an exit about 100 yards ahead. If he could get there, maybe he could find another ride, call an Uber, anything. Marcus started running along the shoulder, his Italian leather shoes slipping on the loose gravel, his lungs burning from the exertion and the panic. He had run maybe 50 yards when he saw a figure standing near the exit ramp. As Marcus got closer, his heart sank. It was the homeless man from Cherry Creek, the one he had humiliated less than an hour ago. The man was standing next to an old motorcycle, a weathered Harley-Davidson Sportster that had seen decades of use. He was putting on his helmet, clearly preparing to ride. When he saw Marcus running toward him covered in blood and dust, the man paused. Marcus had no choice. He had no phone, no car, no other option. His pride, his arrogance, his carefully constructed world of superiority, none of it mattered now. Only Emma mattered. Marcus stumbled the last few yards and came to a stop in front of the homeless man, breathing heavily. The man's expression was unreadable as he looked at Marcus, probably wondering if this was some kind of revenge or continued harassment. "Please," Marcus gasped, the word foreign in his mouth. When was the last time he had begged anyone for anything? "Please, I need help. My daughter, there was an accident. She's at St. Joseph Hospital. She's critical. My car crashed. My phone is broken. I have to get to her, please." The homeless man studied him for a long moment. Marcus could see the calculation in those blue eyes, the man weighing whether to help someone who had just publicly humiliated him. It would be justice, Marcus thought with a surge of despair, for this man to walk away, to leave him stranded as he had tried to do to the homeless man. "Please," Marcus said again, and this time his voice broke. Tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the blood from his nose. "She's 17. She's my only child. I'll do anything. I'll pay you anything. Just please help me get to the hospital." The homeless man's expression softened slightly. He looked at the destroyed Bentley in the distance, then back at Marcus's desperate face. "Get on," he said simply, gesturing to the motorcycle behind him. Marcus stared at the old bike. He had never ridden a motorcycle in his life. The idea of climbing onto this machine, of depending on this man he had just ridiculed, of surrendering control so completely, was terrifying. But Emma was dying. Marcus climbed onto the back of the motorcycle, his movements awkward and uncertain. The homeless man handed him a spare helmet, scratched and faded but functional. "Hold on tight," the man said. "St. Joseph Hospital, you said?" "Yes. Please hurry." The engine roared to life, and Marcus instinctively wrapped his arms around the homeless man's waist, pressing close to his back. He could smell motor oil, leather, and the faint scent of wood smoke. This man, whose name he didn't even know, whose life he had dismissed as worthless, was now his only hope. The motorcycle pulled onto the highway, weaving between the stopped cars with an agility no car could match. The homeless man drove with skill and confidence, his movements precise as he navigated through impossible gaps in traffic. The wind whipped against Marcus's face, cold and harsh, and he held on tighter, his heart pounding. They were moving fast now, the motorcycle engine growling as they accelerated on the clearer lanes. Marcus looked at his watch. 7:38. They had been riding for less than 5 minutes, but they had already covered more ground than Marcus had in 20 minutes of driving. The homeless man said nothing, focused entirely on the road. He took an exit ramp at speed, leaning into the turn with practiced ease, and Marcus felt a surge of terror and gratitude. This man was risking his own safety, risking a ticket he probably couldn't afford to pay, to help someone who had treated him with contempt. They flew through surface streets, the motorcycle's engine echoing off buildings. Other motorists honked and swerved, but the homeless man never slowed. He seemed to know every shortcut, every back road, navigating the city with the expertise of someone who had spent years on its streets. Marcus's mind was filled with images of Emma. Her first steps, her first day of school, her face when she held a puppy at the animal shelter, her tears when her mother, Marcus's ex-wife, had moved to California 5 years ago. He had been so focused on building his empire, on making money, on proving his success, that he had missed so much of her life. Please let her be okay, Marcus prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. Please, I'll do anything. Just let her be okay. The hospital came into view, its white buildings lit against the darkening sky. The homeless man pulled into the emergency entrance, bringing the motorcycle to a stop near the doors. Marcus jumped off before the bike had fully stopped, stumbling but catching himself. He turned back to the homeless man, who was still straddling the motorcycle, his face impossible to read behind the helmet's visor. "Thank you," Marcus said, the words inadequate. "Thank you. I'm so sorry. For earlier. For everything I said. You saved me. You didn't have to, but you did." The homeless man raised his visor. His blue eyes met Marcus's, and for the first time, Marcus saw the wisdom and pain in them, the experiences of someone who had lived a life Marcus couldn't begin to understand. "Go," the man said quietly. "Your daughter needs you." Marcus nodded and ran toward the hospital doors. As they slid open, he glanced back one more time. The homeless man was still there watching him. Marcus wanted to say more, to ask his name, to somehow repay this debt, but Emma was waiting. He turned and ran inside, his heart pounding, his soul heavy with shame and gratitude and desperate hope. The emergency room at St. Joseph Hospital was a chaos of sound and motion. Overhead lights blazed with clinical brightness, and the antiseptic smell mixed with fear and pain. Nurses hurried past, their shoes squeaking on the polished floor. Somewhere a child was crying, and a voice over the intercom called for a doctor to report to the ICU. Marcus rushed to the reception desk, nearly colliding with an elderly man in a wheelchair. "Emma Whitmore!" he gasped. "My daughter, Emma Whitmore. She was in a car accident. I'm her father." The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, typed quickly into her computer. "1 moment, sir. Yes, Emma Whitmore. She's in surgery. 3rd floor, surgical waiting room. Take the elevator to your left." Marcus didn't wait for further directions. He sprinted to the elevator, jabbing the button repeatedly until the doors opened. 2 other people were inside, but Marcus barely registered their presence. He stared at the floor numbers as they climbed, each second an eternity. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, Marcus ran down the corridor until he saw the sign, "Surgical Waiting Room." He burst through the doors and found himself in a somber space with uncomfortable chairs and outdated magazines. A television in the corner played the news, with the sound muted. 3 teenagers sat huddled together on one side of the room, their faces pale and tear-streaked. Marcus recognized them immediately, Emma's friends from Boulder University prep program, Jessica, who had been Emma's best friend since middle school, Ryan, the quiet boy from Emma's chemistry class, and Morgan, whose family lived 2 streets over from Marcus's house in the upscale Washington Park neighborhood. "Mr. Whitmore!" Jessica stood up, fresh tears streaming down her face. Her left arm was in a sling, and she had a large bandage on her forehead. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Marcus grabbed her shoulders, not roughly but urgently. What happened? Tell me everything. Jessica sobbed. We were driving back from Boulder. It was raining. Morgan was driving and we were all wearing our seatbelts, I swear. But this truck, it came out of nowhere, crossed the median. Morgan swerved to avoid it, but we hit the guardrail and rolled. We rolled 3 times. Emma was in the front passenger seat, Ryan added, his voice barely audible. He had a neck brace on and bruises darkening his face. The passenger side took the worst of the impact. The rest of us, we got lucky. But Emma, she was unconscious when the paramedics arrived, Jessica continued, her voice breaking. They had to cut her out of the car. Mr. Whitmore, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if we had waited for the rain to stop. Marcus released Jessica and sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The image of Emma, trapped and bleeding in a mangled car while strangers worked to free her, was almost too much to bear. Where are the doctors? He managed to ask. Has anyone told you anything? They said she was going into surgery, Morgan answered. She was the only one who appeared physically unharmed, but the guilt on her face was devastating. Something about internal bleeding and possible head trauma. That was 45 minutes ago. No one has told us anything since. Marcus stood and approached the reception window that looked into the surgical ward. A nurse looked up, and he could see the sympathy in her eyes before she even spoke. Mr. Whitmore? Yes, my daughter, Emma. How is she? I need to know. Dr. Morrison is operating now. She'll come speak with you as soon as there's news. I promise we're doing everything we can. It wasn't enough. Marcus wanted to burst through the doors to find his daughter, to somehow use his money and power to fix this, but he was helpless. His wealth meant nothing here. His connections couldn't stop internal bleeding or heal broken bones. He was just another terrified father in a surgical waiting room, and all he could do was wait. An hour passed, then 2. Marcus paced the small room like a caged animal. Jessica's parents arrived and took their daughter home, though Jessica protested, wanting to stay until she knew Emma was okay. Ryan's mother came, a single mom who worked as a teacher and drove an old Honda. She hugged her son tight, whispering prayers of gratitude that he was alive. Morgan's father, a lawyer Marcus had met at various school functions, collected his daughter with stern words about responsibility that seemed misplaced given the circumstances. By 9 o'clock, Marcus was alone in the waiting room. The television had cycled through the same news segments 3 times. He had tried calling his ex-wife, Miranda, but she was on a plane from California and unreachable. He had left a voicemail, his voice shaking as he tried to explain what had happened. The door to the surgical area finally opened and Dr. Morrison emerged. She was a woman in her late 50s, her grey hair pulled back in a ponytail, still wearing her surgical scrubs with spots of blood on them that made Marcus's stomach turn. Mr. Whitmore? Marcus stood so quickly he felt dizzy. How is she? Is she going to be okay? Dr. Morrison gestured for him to sit, and Marcus obeyed, though every nerve in his body wanted to stand, to move, to do something. Emma sustained severe injuries in the accident, Dr. Morrison began, her voice professional but not unkind. She had a ruptured spleen, which we removed. She has 3 broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and significant bruising. Most concerning is the head trauma. She suffered a subdural hematoma, bleeding in the brain, which we were able to address surgically. Marcus felt tears rolling down his face. But she's alive? She's going to live? She's alive, Mr. Whitmore. The surgery went as well as we could have hoped, but I need to be honest with you about what comes next. Emma is in a medically induced coma to allow her brain to heal. We won't know the full extent of any neurological damage until she wakes up. That could be days or weeks. We're monitoring her closely, and the next 72 hours are critical. Can I see her? Yes, but I want to prepare you. She's on a ventilator, and she has multiple IVs and monitors. It can be overwhelming. I don't care. I need to see her. Dr. Morrison nodded and led Marcus through the secure doors into the ICU. The unit was dimly lit, with the constant beeping of monitors creating a rhythmic backdrop. Each room they passed held someone's loved one, someone fighting for life. They stopped at room 314. Through the window, Marcus could see Emma lying in the hospital bed, and the sight nearly brought him to his knees. His vibrant, beautiful daughter looked so small, so fragile. Her head was wrapped in bandages, and her face was swollen and bruised. A tube extended from her mouth to the ventilator, which breathed for her with mechanical precision. IVs ran into both arms, and monitors surrounded her, their lines tracking every heartbeat, every breath. "You can go in," Dr. Morrison said gently. "Talk to her. Some studies suggest that coma patients can hear familiar voices. It might help." Marcus entered the room and approached the bed slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter something. He took Emma's hand, careful to avoid the IV, and was shocked by how cold it felt. He tried to warm it between his own hands, rubbing gently. "Emma," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Emma, it's Dad. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here, and you're going to be okay. You're strong. You're the strongest person I know." The only response was the steady beeping of the heart monitor and the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator. Marcus pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, still holding Emma's hand. "I'm so sorry," he continued, the words tumbling out. "I'm sorry I haven't been there enough. I'm sorry I worked so many late nights. I'm sorry I missed your swim meets and your art shows because I was in meetings that didn't matter. I thought I was building something for you, for our future, but I was just building walls between us." He thought about the homeless man, about the contempt he had shown. What would Emma think if she knew? She who volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend, who organized coat drives for the homeless at school, who saw the humanity in everyone. She would be ashamed of him, and rightfully so. "I met someone today," Marcus said softly. "Someone I treated terribly. I judged him, humiliated him, and then when I needed help, when I needed him most, he saved me. He got me here to you. I don't even know his name, Emma. I was so busy being superior that I never asked his name." Marcus stayed in that chair for hours, talking to Emma, telling her stories from when she was little, reminding her of her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, promising her that they would go on that trip to Yellowstone they had been planning for 3 years but never found time for. At some point, a nurse came in to check Emma's vitals. She adjusted the IV and made notes on a chart. "Are you okay, Mr. Whitmore?" she asked gently. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" Marcus shook his head. "I'm not leaving her. I understand. But you need to take care of yourself too. If you need anything, just press the call button." After the nurse left, Marcus pulled out his wallet. It was habit, checking his money, his credit cards, the symbols of his success and security. A business card fell out and fluttered to the floor. Marcus picked it up. It was from a financial advisor he had met at a conference, someone he had promised to call about investments. Investments, money, success. None of it meant anything now. He would trade every penny, every property, every stock option to see Emma open her eyes and smile at him. Marcus's thoughts drifted back to the homeless man. He realized with shame that he had never asked what the man needed, why he was homeless, what his story was. He had seen only what was on the surface and made his judgments accordingly. Just like people who only saw Marcus's wealth and success, never understood the loneliness, the pressure, the hollowness of a life measured only in dollars and deals. "When you wake up," Marcus whispered to Emma, "things are going to be different. I'm going to be different. I promise you that." The monitor beeped steadily, Emma's heart beating on, fighting for life, while her father kept vigil in the ICU, a man humbled and changed in ways he was only beginning to understand. Dawn broke over Denver, painting the city in shades of pink and gold. Marcus had not left Emma's side all night. His suit was rumpled and stained, his face unshaven, his eyes red from exhaustion and tears. Nurses had come and gone through the night, checking vitals, adjusting medications, but Emma remained in her coma, breathing with the assistance of machines, her body fighting battles Marcus couldn't help her win. At 7 o'clock, Dr. Morrison returned, her face showing concern. "Mr. Whitmore, you need to go home, shower, change, get some rest. Emma is stable for now, and we'll call you immediately if anything changes." "I can't leave her," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "You're no good to her if you collapse from exhaustion. Go, come back this afternoon. That's an order, not a suggestion." Marcus reluctantly agreed, though every step away from Emma's room felt like betrayal. He took an Uber back to Cherry Creek to his car, which had been towed to an impound lot. The tow fee was $300, and the driver of the tow truck informed him the Bentley was totaled. "That barrier did a number on her," the driver said, shaking his head. "But hey, you walked away. That's what matters, right?" Marcus thought about Emma, about how she hadn't walked away from her accident. "Yeah," he said quietly, "that's what matters." He took another Uber to his home in Washington Park, a sprawling 5-bedroom house that suddenly felt cavernous and empty. Emma's room was upstairs, her door slightly ajar. Marcus climbed the stairs and pushed it open. The room was Emma herself, bright, creative, full of life. Posters of animals covered one wall. Her desk was piled with textbooks and sketch pads. On her nightstand was a photo of the two of them from 2 years ago, standing at the Grand Canyon, both grinning at the camera. Marcus picked up the frame, his vision blurring with tears. He showered and changed into jeans and a simple button-down shirt, clothes he might have worn on the rare casual weekend. His phone, which he had finally been able to charge, showed dozens of missed calls and messages. Business associates, clients, his assistant Jennifer. He ignored them all except for one from Miranda, Emma's mother. "Marcus, I'm on a flight. I'll be there by noon. Please, please tell me she's okay. I can't lose her, I can't. Please call me as soon as you get this." Marcus called her back, and Miranda answered on the first ring. Through their tears and broken sentences, they shared what information they had, connected by their love for their daughter, even if they could no longer connect with each other. After he hung up, Marcus looked at his watch. It was 8:30. He had 5 hours before Miranda arrived, before he would return to the hospital. 5 hours that suddenly felt like an opportunity. Marcus got back in the Uber that had waited and gave the driver an address. Cherry Creek District, the corner of First and University. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood on the same corner where he had humiliated the homeless man the previous evening. It was early, and the upscale shops were just beginning to open. A few joggers passed by, and business owners swept their storefronts. The homeless man was not there. Marcus felt a sinking in his chest. He needed to find this man, to thank him properly, to apologize, to somehow make amends. But Denver was a big city, and he didn't even know the man's name. Marcus walked to the Metropolitan restaurant where the staff was preparing for lunch. He found the manager, a man named Thomas, who Marcus had tipped generously for years. "Thomas, yesterday evening there was a homeless man sitting outside. He was a veteran with a motorcycle. Did you see where he went?" Thomas frowned, thinking. "Oh, him. Yeah, I remember. He comes around sometimes, never causes trouble. Moved on when that scene happened with you. No idea where he went, though. Could be anywhere." Marcus thanked him and walked to the next block, asking shopkeepers, street vendors, anyone who might have seen the man. Most had seen him at one time or another, but had no information about where he stayed or what his name was. Finally, an older woman who ran a coffee cart remembered something. "That tall fellow with the bike. I think I've seen him at the Veterans Center downtown. He goes there sometimes for meals, worth a try." Marcus looked up the address for the Denver Veterans Center and headed there immediately. The center was a modest building in a less affluent part of the city, its parking lot filled with older vehicles, some bearing veteran plates. Inside, the lobby was simple but clean, with flags from each branch of the military hanging from the ceiling. A receptionist, a young man with kind eyes, greeted Marcus. "Can I help you? I'm looking for someone." Marcus explained. A homeless veteran, tall, early 50s, graying beard. He rides an old Harley. I don't know his name, but I need to find him. The receptionist's expression became guarded. We have a lot of veterans who come through here, sir. I can't just give out personal information. I understand, Marcus said quickly. I'm not trying to cause trouble. This man helped me last night during a family emergency. I want to thank him and apologize for how I treated him earlier. Please, if you know who I'm talking about, if you can get a message to him, tell him Marcus Whitmore needs to speak with him. The receptionist studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I might know who you mean. Jack Thornton, Marine Corps veteran, did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Can't promise anything, but if he comes in, I'll let him know you're looking for him. Jack Thornton, Marcus repeated, committing the name to memory. He pulled out a business card and wrote his personal cell phone number on the back. Please, it's important. Marcus left the center feeling a small measure of hope. At least he had a name now. Jack Thornton, a Marine who had served his country, who had returned to find himself on the streets, who had every reason to hate someone like Marcus, but had helped anyway. Marcus spent the rest of the morning calling rental car companies, dealing with insurance claims on his Bentley, and handling the business he couldn't ignore. But his heart wasn't in it. Every moment away from the hospital felt wrong. At noon, Marcus returned to St. Joseph Hospital. He found Miranda in the ICU waiting room, her face ravaged by fear and exhaustion. Despite their divorce, despite the years and distance between them, they embraced like drowning people, finding one another in a storm. Together, they sat with Emma. They talked to her, read to her from her favorite books, played music she loved on a phone. The doctors came and went, checking monitors, adjusting medications, speaking in cautious tones about recovery and time and patience. 3 days passed this way. Marcus and Miranda took turns at Emma's bedside, sometimes together, sometimes alone. Marcus cancelled all his meetings, delegated urgent matters to his partners, and essentially disappeared from his professional life. For the first time in decades, business was not his priority. On the 4th day, as Marcus sat alone with Emma in the early morning hours, her hand twitched in his. Marcus's head snapped up. Emma! Her eyelids fluttered. The movement was so slight, Marcus thought he had imagined it. But then it happened again. He hit the call button, and within seconds, nurses and Dr. Morrison were in the room. She moved, Marcus said, his voice shaking. Her eyes, her hand. Dr. Morrison checked Emma's pupils, her reflexes. Emma, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. A long moment passed, and then, unmistakably, Emma's fingers curled slightly around Dr. Morrison's hand. That's good, Doctor, Morrison said, her professional composure cracking into a genuine smile. That's very good. She's starting to come out of the coma. It's a process, Mr. Whitmore. It could take hours or days for her to fully wake up, but this is excellent progress. Marcus called Miranda, who arrived within the hour. They both watched as Emma slowly, incrementally began to return to consciousness. By that afternoon, she was breathing on her own, the ventilator removed. By evening, her eyes were opening, though her gaze was unfocused and confused. Dad? The word was barely a whisper, slurred and weak, but it was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. I'm here, Emma. I'm right here. Mom's here too. We're not going anywhere. Emma's recovery was slow. She had to relearn how to swallow, how to move her limbs with coordination. There were setbacks and small victories, speech therapy, physical therapy, endless tests. But she was alive, she was healing, and the doctor said that with time she would make a full recovery. 2 weeks after the accident, Emma was moved from the ICU to a regular room. She was able to sit up, to eat soft foods, to have conversations. Though she tired easily, Marcus was there every day, working from a laptop in her room when he absolutely had to, but mostly just being present in a way he never had been before. On Emma's 16th day in the hospital, as Marcus was helping her with a crossword puzzle, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Emma called, her voice still weak but growing stronger. The door opened and Jack Thornton walked in. Marcus stood so quickly his chair fell backward. Jack looked different, cleaner, his beard trimmed, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that, while worn, were neat. But it was unmistakably the same man who had saved Marcus's life with his kindness. "Jack," Marcus breathed. "Mr. Whitmore," Jack said with a slight nod. "The Veterans Center gave me your message. Took me a while to decide whether to come. I'm so glad you did." Marcus's eyes were already filling with tears. "Jack, this is my daughter, Emma. Emma, this is Jack Thornton. He's the reason I got to the hospital that night. He saved my life." Emma looked at Jack with wide eyes. "You did?" Jack shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just gave him a ride, ma'am." "Just a ride?" Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Jack, you did so much more than that. After what I did to you, what I said to you, you had every right to leave me stranded, but you didn't. You helped me when I didn't deserve help." Jack was quiet for a moment, then said, "I've been where you were that night, Mr. Whitmore. Desperate, afraid, helpless. I know what it's like. And I also know that people aren't defined by their worst moments. We all deserve a chance at redemption." Marcus walked over to Jack and extended his hand. When Jack took it, Marcus held on, his other hand gripping Jack's forearm. "I want to apologize, truly apologize for how I treated you. You are a hero who served our country, and I treated you like garbage. I judged you without knowing your story, without seeing your worth. I was wrong, and I'm deeply, truly sorry." Jack's eyes showed surprise, then acceptance. "Apology accepted, Mr. Whitmore. Marcus, please call me Marcus." Over the next hour, as Emma dozed between conversations, Jack told his story. He had served 12 years in the Marines, rising to the rank of staff sergeant. He had been a helicopter mechanic, skilled with his hands, respected by his men. But Afghanistan had changed him. He had seen friends die, had experienced traumas that still haunted his dreams. When he returned to civilian life, he couldn't adjust. His marriage fell apart. He lost his job due to PTSD episodes he couldn't control. Eventually, he lost his apartment. "The motorcycle was my dad's," Jack explained. "It's the only thing I kept. Some nights I sleep on it in parking lots, some nights I stay at the Veterans Center shelter. I've been trying to save money for a deposit on an apartment, but it's hard when you're on the streets. People look right through you, or they look at you with disgust." Marcus felt the weight of his actions settle on him like a physical burden. "Oh, what can I do to help? Please let me help you." Jack hesitated. "I don't want charity, Marcus." "It's not charity. You saved me. You saved my chance to be with Emma. Let me give you a hand up the way you gave me one." After more conversation, they worked out a plan. Marcus would help Jack get into a veterans support program that provided subsidized housing. He would connect Jack with a therapist who specialized in PTSD. And he would help Jack get his motorcycle properly maintained and insured. But Jack insisted on one thing. "I want to work, Marcus. I need to work. I'm not looking for a handout." "I understand," Marcus said. "Jack, I've been thinking. My company has been wanting to start a veteran outreach program, hiring veterans for various positions. Would you be interested in talking to my HR department?" "What kind of work?" Jack asked cautiously. "I don't know yet." "What are your skills besides motorcycle mechanics?" Jack thought. "I can fix just about anything mechanical. I'm good with logistics, planning, coordinating. That was my job in the Corps." An idea formed in Marcus's mind. "What if I told you we need someone to manage the maintenance and logistics for our office buildings? Someone to coordinate repairs, oversee contractors, manage schedules. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and it comes with benefits." Jack's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. If you want it, it's yours." Emma, who had been listening with half-closed eyes, spoke up. "Dad's serious, and thank you for saving him. I love my dad, even if he's sometimes too focused on work." Marcus laughed through his tears. "Not anymore, Em, not anymore." Over the following months, true transformation took place. Jack moved into a small apartment, started therapy, and began working for Whitmore Capital Management. He proved to be exactly what Marcus had hoped: competent, dedicated, and respected by everyone he worked with. His experience with logistics and his attention to detail made him invaluable. Emma recovered fully, though the accident left her with a new appreciation for life and a determination to pursue her dream of becoming a veterinarian with renewed vigor. She returned to school, where she began organizing awareness campaigns about texting and driving, turning her trauma into a mission to save others. Marcus changed in ways both subtle and profound. He still worked hard, but he now had boundaries. He attended Emma's events, took weekends off, and began volunteering at the Denver Veterans Center, using his business connections to help other veterans find employment. One Saturday, 6 months after the accident, Marcus and Emma attended a fundraiser that Jack had organized at the Veterans Center. The event raised money for homeless veterans, and the turnout was impressive. Local businesses donated prizes, veterans shared their stories, and the community came together in support. As Marcus watched Jack speak to the crowd about the importance of supporting those who served, he felt a hand slip into his. Emma stood beside him, healthy and strong, smiling up at her father. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said. "I'm proud of you too, Em, and I'm grateful." For what? For second chances, for the people who show us who we should be, for the grace that lets us grow from our mistakes. That night, as Marcus drove Emma home, in a modest Lexus hybrid that replaced the ostentatious Bentley, he thought about the man he had been 6 months ago. That Marcus would have been bored by a veterans fundraiser, would have seen it as beneath him. That Marcus had measured worth by wealth and success by the size of his bank account. The man he was now understood that true wealth was measured in relationships, in compassion, in the ability to see the humanity in everyone. Success wasn't a number. It was coming home to his daughter, knowing he had helped someone find their way, understanding that every person had a story worth hearing and a dignity worth honoring. "Dad?" Emma asked as they pulled into their driveway. "Yeah, Em. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Jack hadn't been there that night? If he had just walked away?" Marcus thought about it. "Yeah, I do. I think I would have found another way to the hospital, but I also think I would have missed something more important than just a ride. I would have missed the lesson, the wake-up call. Jack didn't just get me to you, Emma. He saved me in a different way." "He's a good man," Emma said. "He is, and he reminded me that I should be a better one." They went inside together, father and daughter, both changed by an accident that could have ended in tragedy, but instead became a story of redemption, grace, and the profound truth that sometimes the people we dismiss, the ones we judge as worthless, are the very ones who hold the keys to our salvation. Marcus never forgot the feeling of being on his knees, metaphorically, begging a man he had humiliated for help. That humility, that moment of being stripped of pride and arrogance, had taught him more than decades of success ever could. And Jack, once a homeless biker, dismissed and mocked, had proven that heroism doesn't wear expensive suits or drive luxury cars. Sometimes it wears a worn leather jacket and rides an old Harley, ready to help even those who don't deserve it, because that's what true character looks like. In the end, the rich man's moment on his knees, both literally and figuratively, became the beginning of a new life. Not just for him, but for everyone his transformation touched. And it all started with a motorcycle ride through the streets of Denver, given by a homeless veteran who knew that sometimes the greatest wealth is found in compassion, and the truest success is measured in the lives we change through simple acts of kindness.